Let's talk about First Brands Group, a company you've never heard of but whose auto parts keep your car running. They were a silent giant in the automotive industry, ensuring that vehicles stayed on the road. On September 28, 2025, First Brands filed for bankruptcy, leaving behind $10 billion in debt and a crater in the financial world. This event sent shockwaves through the industry. Founded in 2014 by Patrick James, First Brands grew fast by buying up competitors, fueled not by sales, but by complex loans and financial tricks. Their aggressive expansion strategy was a ticking time bomb. When the music stopped, lenders realized their safe investments were anything but. The illusion of stability shattered overnight. The private credit market, worth $1.7 trillion, was suddenly exposed as everyone scrambled to figure out who was left holding the bag. The ripple effects were felt far and wide. Investigators now suspect First Brands may have pledged the same invoices to multiple lenders, a financial shell game. This kind of fraud is not just a minor oversight, it's a systemic issue. The big question: how many other companies are playing this same dangerous game? The answer could reshape the financial landscape as we know it. First Brands borrowed billions using invoice financing and factoring, turning future sales into instant cash. This allowed them to access money quickly, fueling rapid expansion and giving the illusion of unstoppable growth. On the surface, it looked like a smart, innovative way to keep the business moving forward, but underneath, the risks were quietly stacking up. They used special purpose vehicles, or SPVs, to hide debt off their balance sheet, making the company look healthier than it was. These complex financial structures are often used to separate risky assets, but in this case, they became a tool for deception, masking the true extent of the company's liabilities from investors and regulators alike. But the assets in these SPVs may have been smoke and mirrors. Many of the receivables supposedly backing the loans were questionable, and some may not have even existed. The paperwork was often unclear, making it nearly impossible to verify what was real and what was fabricated. Allegations suggest First Brands sold the same receivables to multiple lenders, creating a web of overlapping claims. This meant that several banks and investors believed they had rights to the same future payments, setting the stage for inevitable conflict and confusion when the truth came out. Lenders, blinded by the promise of high returns, failed to check if they were the only ones owed the money. Driven by competition and the fear of missing out, they ignored red flags and skipped basic checks, trusting the paperwork without asking tough questions. These financial tools aren't evil, but in the wrong hands, they become weapons of mass financial destruction. Used responsibly, they can help businesses grow. But when abused, they can bring down entire companies and leave investors with nothing. The result? A catastrophic failure of due diligence driven by greed. The warning signs were there, but everyone chose to look the other way, hoping the good times would last forever. When the house of cards collapsed, everyone realized too late that the foundation was fake. The fallout was swift and devastating, leaving a trail of financial ruin and shattered trust in its wake. When First Brands collapsed, Wall Street's elite took the hit. Jefferies' Leucadia fund lost $715 million, thinking it was buying safe invoice receivables. UBS's O'Connor fund had over $500 million at risk, plus exposure through a fintech platform tied to First Brands. Even Millennium, a $79 billion hedge fund, had to write down $100 million. These sophisticated investors missed the warning signs, blinded by the promise of steady returns. The private credit market's complexity hid the real risks, and lenders bought into a story that was too good to be true. In the end, they were left with nothing but IOUs on a sinking ship. If this sounds familiar, it should. It's a rerun of financial disasters past. Time and again, we find ourselves watching the same story unfold, just with new faces and different names. The details may change, but the underlying script remains eerily similar. In 2008, it was subprime mortgages that triggered a global meltdown, leaving millions without homes and shaking the world's financial foundations. In 2021, Greensill Capital collapsed over supply chain financing, sending shockwaves through markets and exposing hidden vulnerabilities. The playbook is the same: risky assets, hidden debt, and a dangerous overconfidence that blindsides even seasoned professionals. Investors are dazzled and sometimes deceived by complex financial jargon and promises of high returns. Off-balance sheet tricks and lax lending standards let risk fester quietly. building up pressure until it finally explodes in spectacular fashion. After every crisis, we promise better oversight, stricter rules, and more transparency, but the risk just moves to new, shadowy corners of the market, less regulated areas like private credit, where oversight is weaker and dangers can grow unchecked. Experts warn, lending standards are weaker than ever, and the financial system is once again vulnerable to shocks. First Brands is just the latest casualty, but it certainly won't be the last. The lesson? If you don't fix the behavior at the root of the problem, the risk always finds a new place to hide, morphing into the next big threat. The cycle repeats, until the next implosion, reminding us that history has a way of coming back for an encore. The First Brands collapse is a brutal reminder. There's no such thing as a free lunch in finance. Investors ignored red flags, chasing high returns without asking hard questions. Banks and lenders must remember, complex structures can hide risk as easily as manage it. Regulators need to shine a light on the $1.7 trillion private credit market before the next disaster. Fundamentals matter. A business built on debt and accounting tricks is doomed to fall. The fallout will hurt investors, employees, and maybe the wider economy. The real lesson? Stay vigilant, because the bill for easy money always comes due.